Call
Yes.
this meeting to order.
Yes.
Muddle through. Just kidding. And I will ask for approval of the agenda.
I will actually request 2 amendments be made to the agenda. 2 items came in last night from the city. We need to add a TJ's Block Party event application for review, and then a review of our construction parking permit fee.
All right.
As, yeah, go for it.
No, that's fine. Sorry. We'll put those after 8.
I'll make the motion that we accept the agenda with the changes.
Second.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks, Bruce. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, moving on to public comment. Thanks for being here. Approval of minutes from a regular meeting from February 12th. Any questions, additions?
Make the motion that we accept the minutes from February 12th.
Thank you, Karen.
I'll second.
Second from Deanna, thank you. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, thank you. Minutes from our special meeting on February 12th.
Motion to approve.
Motion from Bruce.
Second.
Second from Deanna. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Financials.
Okay, so what went out in the board packet was an unpaid bills of $281,229.61. We did receive a last minute invoice on Friday relating to the Frostbite Festival, so I did add that in. That was $97.16, making the new total $281,326.77. Some things that are getting paid out this month is the West Shore Plaza agreement. That is $240,000, and that will now get removed from next year's budget. We have a couple different Frostbite expenses. Those come from funds raised by Frostbite or Frostbite, so that's not DDA funds. And then we also have an invoice from Spicer for their work on the REP grants. And then to note in the unpaid or the compiled, there was an error in the budget versus actual the statement of activities. There was a $400 expense that wasn't noted in Frostbite. So their total should be 386 rounded, and then we're still waiting on one invoice to come, according to the spreadsheet that Deanna and I have.
Thanks, Nicole. Any questions?
I'm gonna take it offline.
What's that?
I'll take it offline.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Bruce.
I'll second.
Thanks, Deanna. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Executive report.
We are down to 10 vacancies along River Street, which is really exciting. I know 10 still feels like a lot. People always say, oh, River Street, there's so many vacancies, but out of the 90+ properties that are down in River Street, having 10 vacancies now is a good number to be around from a percentage standpoint. And obviously probably half of those 10 are currently uninhabitable, right? Where they need multi-million-dollar projects to get them to be filled. So that is just a number I really wanted to highlight this month. But Lunabella's, they have set a ribbon cutting date for the end of April 18th, I believe it was. So that's really exciting news that will be their opening. Love Wines will be shortly behind them in either late April or May. They haven't given any exact date as of right now. Some other updates, the Northern Hotel, they were working with MEDC to get an extension with some of their state funding that they needed to leverage. And luckily with talking with Hannah Yurt at MEDC, they were able to get a 60-day extension for MEDC funds. So that's going to allow that project to work with the land bank, use their funds, and then move forward with MEDC funds. So was excellent news. Currently working with 308 River Street. That's the building up by Spicer that has the porch added on to the back. they're still looking for tenants and they're working with a realtor out of Traverse City, who I'm working with to identify businesses that go in that space. I was also able to tour the Derry Jones building down here right next to the Outsider, where the GOP office was. In that building definitely needs a little love. Needs a little love. It's a tough space, but after touring that space, something that I kind of want to propose when we do our strategic planning is I think there's a couple properties that would be really beneficial if this board, if we took groups in and were able to actually walk through some of these buildings that need those heavy lifts, so we understand what kind of projects need to take place. But everybody on this board, because I'm thinking, Ben hasn't, and
Enough, what's your idea?
come again?
Enough, what's your idea?
What's your
Wait, there are
idea?
enough people who have been through that building, what's your idea?
I'm still not sure what you're saying, Bruce.
Wrecking ball is another.
Yeah,
option,
okay.
Right, and
Gotcha.
I think that
Yeah.
I think we could quickly get a consensus. We need ideas for what to do.
That's not even on the market, is it?
No, it's not, but it's something where,
Isn't that the oldest standing building downtown?
Mm-hmm. The wood, the one to the east,
Yeah.
the wood.
Yeah,
If you look up, the facade is wood and it's one that first survived the fire.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, but one portion is Division Street in particular with how many, obviously those buildings aren't completely dilapidated, but let's say Ware Hardware, like in my mind, that's a demo project where
Yeah.
you then are able to use that half block to throw up a new 2-story mixed use brick building, but getting RFPs out to get eyes on it, and then highlight those properties during, something like a developer day.
The Oceana County Housing Development Group had a plan for that property. And actually, I think it was where that Z's went in, those two properties together for housing.
Yeah.
They were gonna do a 3-story housing complex right there, which would be kind of cool because you got the marina and stuff, but I can't remember why that fell apart.
Numbers didn't work.
Okay, all right.
We didn't score high enough on walkability and MEDC.
But that's changed since then too. Those numbers.
Enough. Yeah, I haven't heard.
And I think the other was the actual purchase price of the Park Dairy was almost as much as the entire Amor Signs.
Yeah, I think it was 400,000, right? Which is, that's a lot to do a complete gut job
Yeah.
on. But regardless, just wanted to let the board know, I did tour that building with a property owner, got eyes on that. But that's all from that report, Kyle.
Okay.
Andrew, when you
I
say,
got a couple questions for you too, Andrew. Go ahead,
That's
Dee. No, go ahead.
when you say 10 vacancies, is that on River Street or in the DDA
So
district?
that is just on River Street. I do have everything calculated out in the DDA. But obviously like Division Street, for example, I almost view as like it's its own neighborhood, right? In a way where it's like 3rd Street in Marquette, where it's a little offshoot and it's still in the DDA district, but that vacancy rate's much higher. On Division Street, there's a couple buildings for sale, and obviously Ware Hardware. There's been some good movement with the sale of the organic market, and obviously the news came out in the News Advocate that the Coastal Woods is moving into that store front, but it's still a work in progress with Ware Hardware. But I think when we do go about our strategic plan, we should be really intentional about dialing in on Division Street, and making that a priority, because if the gateway goes through, we do streetscape here on River Street, that still leaves us with Division, right? And because it's still in our DDA and we can't forget about it, making sure that we're intentionally incorporating that into any type of long-term visioning that we have will be key.
I think a nice tool would be to have a listing of properties that are available,
Mhm.
whether they're commercially listed or privately.
Yeah.
Available would
Yeah.
be nice, just.
And so I have that list.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, I on that list, I have it, whether it's vacant, for sale, current project, or fill.
Okay, all right.
So we have a list of everything
cool.
that's mapped out. It's just a matter of, there might be a couple where it's vacant and just the property owner might not be willing to play ball.
Right.
So it's something where it's like, I'm not sure if it's technically on the market by being off market, right?
Andrew, in your report, you're saying you're getting a flurry of activity.
Mhm.
I talked to a financial advisor who's new. They tell me they're making a ton of phone calls.
Yeah.
Until I tell them to start writing how many phone calls they make a day.
Sure.
So a flurry could be any
Yeah.
number.
Sure, so for what I mean by flurry, so specifically for 427 River Street, that one I've fielded over the last month and a half, probably at least 6 calls from people all over the country.
What I'm asking from you.
Yeah.
Is when you come to the board meeting here, I'd rather hear exact numbers
Okay,
versus probably
okay,
or flurry.
Yeah.
Just maybe to give me more peace of mind that we truly are having, I believe you.
Yeah.
I believe you're doing a really good job with what you're doing. I appreciate all the detail. But as we met, you're aware of that. I think we're looking for finer detail,
okay,
with what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
So if you would please, with Kyle's permission,
You don't need my.
you're the boss, that's what I look at here. I'd rather see a list of who's coming in.
Okay.
Who you're talking to.
so I won't be able to give names is the thing, I
I'm
can
okay
give,
with that, but I'd like to know maybe where they're out of.
okay,
Like,
yeah, I could provide you that.
I got a call from Grand Rapids, I
Yeah.
got a call from Detroit. Here's the other thing too. Obviously with the Gateway project,
Yep,
hopefully in motion, is, I agree, there's a lot of activity. But, which means there's opportunity in this town that I feel like we're being reactive and maybe still instead of a little proactive.
Mhm.
And I think there's opportunities where we could be reaching out, trying to pull some people in here too,
yeah,
ahead of even the phone calls you're getting. And I'm not saying you're not busy enough. Another opportunity, and I don't know if it's been approached, what's going on with Katina, or Al Katina?
La Katrine.
Thank you.
which one is it now?
Sixth name.
Right, yeah.
Breakfast, the Mexican
Yeah.
restaurant, what's going on with that?
So it's most likely gonna hit the market here, but there's no guarantee, just given the dynamics of the property ownership. It's not 100% owned by one individual. So that group's currently working
So-
through options.
Have we, when I say we, means you, have you reached out to any other business owners that are in that market to take a look at that?
I've not that one specific.
So it's another opportunity
Yeah.
where you working on the EDC side.
Yeah.
You could be helping us out there,
Okay.
so. The other part, again, I know you guys talk about strategic planning here. In your opinion, what do we need downtown?
Okay.
What do we need in this town? Have you put
Sure.
your,
Yeah, so I have a target business list right now that's using void analysis within the markets. And so a lot of what we're seeing is, you're talking men's clothing stores, because there's nowhere you can actually buy formal men's clothing. Pet stores are a big market void. That's kind of throughout Filer, Manistee, and then Manistee Township as well. Truck stops are a big one that come up in void analysis. Then there are breakfast chains that is also a void market. So I could send you the target business list I have.
you could, I appreciate it. And my next question back to you is, have you reached out to those type developers to come take a look at Manistee?
So I have that list and I try to get contacts for them and I reach out as much as I can. So like Love Wines was one of those where I identified it, reached out, now they're here. So,
Perfect.
How is that list generated? Where's that data come from?
so there's a couple different platforms. Placer AI
Okay,
does void analysis. Esri can do they have a business analysis tool.
okay,
It's all the tools that use kind of geographical based data analysis. That's where it comes from. So it's a mixture of like foot traffic, census data. They're really looking at demographic makeups of the people coming in, but then the people who are also here.
be interesting to take a look at that and then overlay it with this board's opinion. Cause like, just one example, you mentioned breakfast chains.
Yeah.
I don't know of a breakfast chain that's gonna come to a town this size, but
Yeah.
we could modify that and say, yeah, obviously a breakfast restaurant could, do well in the central business district
Mhm.
or, like from a clothing store perspective, maybe Carrier, I could provide some, maybe be more specific.
Yeah.
On what we think could be, I don't know, just it'd be interesting to kind of personalize that to
Yeah.
Manistee.
Yeah, and so within that target business list, it's never normally commercial chains that I identify.
Gotcha.
Normally existing business within the greater Northwestern Michigan region that are within a 90-mile radius
Mhm.
that aren't like, I'm not looking to bring in a Men's Warehouse, right?
No, I
Because a
get
Men's Warehouse isn't gonna work here.
Yeah.
It would be more so like a store like Captain Quarters, right, up in
Sure.
Traverse City, where it's specifically high-end men's
Yeah.
clothing, where yeah, I can walk and get a suit and button-down shirt, because you can't buy a suit jacket anywhere in Manistee.
Yeah.
Right, there's just nowhere you can buy a nice formal blazer.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I don't mean to be too specific.
No,
It's
you're
interesting to look at
Yeah.
what you're looking at and then maybe put the DDA's sort of slant on it and what we, you know,
Sure,
because
sure.
there's a lot of people that have been in business here for a long
Yeah.
time that have,
Well, then maybe it comes down to just modifying the report itself and adding in some data maps
sure,
for the board. Because I know right now the chamber is in discussion of potentially getting Placer, which gives me a lot more access to generate
Gotcha.
infographics, right? Where it's a nice little breakdown saying, here's foot traffic, you know, or void analysis, or whatever we want to pull.
Sure.
And then I could provide that in the report rather than what's currently there. So maybe it's just a reformatting of that report. If
Yeah.
the board would like to see that.
Be
Maybe
interesting.
different categories. Yeah, maybe we add in on, hey, calls, where from, or location section.
I'd appreciate it. Like I said, I think you're doing a fantastic job. I appreciate, I feel like there's transparency with you. I think you're doing again. But if we can drill down.
Yeah.
A little bit further, again, with how many
Okay.
versus making the flurry. And I like Kyle's idea of that. I'm glad you have it. So,
Okay.
appreciate it.
So then, Andrew, on the other side of that, how would the chamber identify a business that might not be a good fit downtown in one of these buildings?
Mhm.
So, I mean, is that something that the chamber would do?
Yeah, so I mean, from a reach out standpoint, from what Ben's requesting, yeah, we wouldn't want to, but like we mentioned, oversaturate the market. So that's something that should be readily available and come out of a void analysis. A void analysis isn't going to tell you to bring something in that's already oversaturated in a market, right? It's not going to tell me to bring in another ice cream shop because we have 5 within a certain radius. So that's something that, you know, we wouldn't go about doing if the void analysis or some type of market.
So we probably
analysis.
should put another Edward Jones office on River Street.
Exactly.
That's-
There you go.
Here we go.
You can't avoid that, sorry.
Yeah.
Bike shop.
Yes.
Another Raymond James or something like that.
Bring 'em in. Well, it's a great question. All right, so here's another question for you.
Yep.
Because again, if I'm new to this board, how do you, that's okay. How do you avoid the, strip club coming into town?
Strip club,
Yeah, I mean,
gentlemen's club.
thank you. Is that, do we have that ordinance in place?
Ordinances that do help us with that, but it's been a long time since I looked at those.
Yeah,
Those come from the city and they would regulate if
Okay.
such a place could come down here, but I think we do have a big impact on that.
Okay.
and it's something at the end of the day, if somebody does want to start a certain business in our community, they have all the power in the world to buy the property. If they're not looking for any type of permit that needs a public hearing, they could buy that property, start their business, and there's nothing anybody can really do about it outside of just put pressure on them and maybe not support their business. But at the end of the day, there's property rights, right, in the US that kind of trump a lot of other community concerns. So luckily, yeah, from like an adult entertainment or adult industry standpoint, that's something that is somewhat regulated in ordinances, but if another ice cream shop did want to move downtown.
I mean, that's, I understand. I'm just
Yeah.
saying it's, Traverse City and Grand Rapids have done a really good job of avoiding that.
I see that as like a square footage price sort of part of that being part of the issue. So if we can get ahead of that, and let's just use Alcatrine, for example.
Yes.
You know, I think it's a great opportunity to try to find a good match for that property with a liquor license that's extremely hard to get before we let, that's a bad way to say it,
Yeah.
before a less desirable purchaser comes along, let's try to find a good one to get ahead of it. And I think the less vacancy there is, the more square footage prices go up and you get tend to get better quality businesses because they have to perform and so. But I think it's interesting that you have access to that data and we should dive into it a little bit more.
Yeah.
So.
Thanks, Andrew. A little bit of pressure there. I appreciate it.
No, you're good.
You handled it well.
No, appreciate it.
The other component that we need to get wound into this is there are businesses that we need to go after for strategic purposes because it fits with everything else that we're trying to do long term. The number of fishing boats that come through town is staggering. Yeah, and there is no one catering to that market on River Street. There are no high end, you can't buy a fishing pole in town. I don't know what fishermen need for their boats, but it's a lot and it's expensive. And we need things to draw people into town. They don't necessarily want to make the trip up the river in boats because it takes time. And there's right now not a lot to draw them as, you know, fishermen into town. So while, you know, gaps in the market, you know, it's important to be able to, you know, get a jacket somewhere downtown. That's not going to drive us strategically. What is going to drive us is these key businesses that fit with our overall, you know, kind of marketing plan for the town. So winding those two things together, you know, or having the gap analysis within a framework of the kinds of businesses that we need to be getting anchor businesses, you know, downtown that will drive further development.
Yeah, I think you have to look at, you know, throughout the county too, like Osborne's is a big sports and fishing store, you know, that they have, but it's in the county because of the lakes and the rivers and stuff. The Marina Supply building that my brother ran for years, you know, it's just like you have to have a large area. That's why you have the big sections in the back and everything, but the supply stuff like high-end, you know, reels and for the fly fishermen, I mean, the fly stuff is unbelievable costs, you know, so the high-end stuff would be pretty cool down.
I'm surprised there's not a fly store in town. You have to go to Wellston
Yeah.
to get to the nearest fly shop, which is frustrating for me.
But
It's like,
in fairness, that's where most of the fly fishing.
yeah, right. I mean, it's the highest foot traffic for fly fishing's out by Tippy, right? So everybody, that's why 3 of them are in Wellston.
That's where
But
the guides are.
Yeah, right. But it still is like, you're surprised that there's not like a fly store downtown because there's still a lot of people like myself who go to the little Manistee that you don't go through Wellston to get to those spots. You go south of town and then go west or east.
That's
So,
exactly what he's saying, you know, when the fishermen come in, you know, stopping at a kind of a high-end store that has a variety of things like that, instead of the big supply or the marina stuff, exactly what you're saying would be.
Yeah.
That is one of our livelihoods here.
Well, I think one of the opportunities is to sit and go down and talk to the charter boat captains.
Yes.
And just say, what could you use in town?
Yep.
I mean, does it make sense to even have a store, or are you guys picking everything up in Muskegon on your trip up? The opportunity is go down and talk to those people.
And the other thing that's going to start happening is the hotel rooms that are getting built here. Right now, we've got, you know, 100 hotel rooms that fill up with people who may not know a lot about fishing. How do they connect with a guide? How do they know to get to Wellston? You know, there's no presence at the Hampton, and we're going to need a presence you know, around the Gateway project to connect people to opportunities for recreation across the county. And there's nothing like that. So, you know, as we're trying to fill places, we need to be mindful about the direction we need to go that will leverage a lot more economic development.
I will add that I think the Tourism Authority is doing a a pretty good job, you know, like there's kiosks around, you know, airport here.
Right.
I don't know if they're in the hotels or not, directing what's out county as well. So let's not forget about that with Sammy not getting here. She would speak up.
She can't defend herself.
But she has those kiosks, you know, as a human beings, you know, directing people to the kiosks.
Yeah.
You know, because people may not know what to do with them.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yep.
Nice job. Thank you all for the discussion. Moving on to subcommittee reports, facade grant, anything there, Andrew?
Facade grant, MEDC facade projects are still, we have 4 left and looks like, construction for 2 of them. This is gonna happen in the spring once the weather gets even warmer. And then the other 2 are gonna be next fall, and they're kind of pushing the deadline. All those funds have to be used by March of 26. So just staying on them. I do my, you know, kind of month and a half check-ins, just reach out. Sometimes they don't reply and questions come up and
I think we asked this, but let's say they don't use it and they forfeit those funds. What happens to those funds?
so to my understanding in reading the contract with MEDC, if the default is on the business's end, we still retain those funds. We don't have to give them back to the state.
You can re-grant them.
Yeah, we could re-grant them, and they can be reabsorbed into our next year's facade program. So, and that's, I think, that from the contract, it sounds like it would almost dissolve all the reporting and responsibility from the state. So it would be kind of nice. But it does give me peace of mind to say, okay, if the businesses don't want it or just, you know, it's like chasing their tail and don't nail down a project in time.
We can re-grant.
You know, yeah, and I'm obviously trying to work with them and say, hey,
Yeah.
like, this is a timeline, make sure you understand this. But
Yeah, you can only do so much.
yeah, right. And then for the ones that were just granted, all of those contracts are in. Work has started on one of the projects with new window installation out by Purple Paintbrush and Clean Lines, tattoo parlor down there. And then the other 3 are yet to start. So,
Are you concerned about anybody not getting their project done?
no, not in particular. I know the Elks are just currently working on making sure that the scope that they originally thought was going to be, they're gonna be able to execute that. So just working with Steve out of the Elks to make sure that that's, you know, timeline's accurate and that they're able to use every penny that they were awarded. Because that's the goal, right? Is let's get these funds activated, let's get them out there and let's not, you know, do projects that are less than what you said, so you can really take advantage of every last penny.
Also costs. I mean, they have to.
Yeah.
Maybe lock in if they haven't.
Yeah,
This is gonna change
Yes,
real
it is.
fast.
Yes, it is.
but I'm not, I wouldn't say concerned, but I'm not concerned about anybody.
Thank you.
Streetscape.
Streetscape, the ad hoc committee met early February, and so we are waiting to reconvene again. Outcome of that was really some clear direction for the remaining of River Street. And so Brandon with Right Side Designs working on changing some of those renderings to get a holistic picture, clean marketing material. And then once he's complete with those renderings, the whole committee will get back together, review those. And right now, Spicer's put a pause on engineering anything for the wrap until we knew further. There were some design changes that came out of that early February meeting that were slightly different than what was agreed upon in January. So it's just better to say, hey, we're just gonna put a pause on the wrap until we know for certain that we got it, just so we don't need to spend more money than we have to.
So you can share some of that stuff with the committee when I get nervous when this is getting changed, that's getting changed. You know, not that I don't trust the ad hoc committee, it's just that just keeping us in the loop.
Yeah.
I've been there. There's 2 apartments down the road where all of a sudden everything changes and you're bored and the wire and stuff. So it just keeps me a little bit less nervous.
Yeah, I think, Karen, I think more of the issue, we've spent so much time on these grants that have popped up that we've lost sight of the entire project. So that's, the changes Andrew was talking about were more just like some of the details for that particular grant related thing. And now we're gonna refocus on getting.
Yeah.
Being able to present to the board our thoughts and ideas about the rest of River Street in particular. So then we can actually have a.
Yeah.
So that will come to the full board.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
And those
I
changes,
am losing track of
Yeah.
where are we?
Yeah, and we recognize that because of, I blame not in a bad way, but these grants that have come up and you spend all this time and now that we've paused that, waiting to find out if we're awarded that. But in the meantime, we need to refocus on what we want, what we think we want the rest of the corridor to look like, bring it to the board and communicate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Anything with gap financing?
So
I do a little assumption. See, it makes everybody smile. That's a great ring. We all smile.
She looks like an ice cream shop or something.
She sounds like 1960s sitcom.
Found it. And it's Bruce from the ice cream shop.
Gap financing.
Yeah, so gap financing, we finally got that amended at city council in the February meeting, which was really exciting stuff. So that we now have a new addition within our TIF and TIF development plan. So really excited to finally have that and now just working through the trying to craft that application or more so tweak that application with Ed. So it's in a spot where we can actually activate the program now. So we're kind of ready to rock with that.
Thank you. We have the addition of a special event request from TJ's, Lindsay Swiderski for her block party taking place on July 19th from 7 to 10. Just because we're familiar with this, I don't think there's any major changes from what she's done in years past. Do you agree with that?
Come again?
Just because we kind of know what this looks like, is there any major changes from what she's done in the past?
So my understanding, there's no major changes. I do want to know it being an amendment and it kind of getting to us late is not Lindsay's fault. That was more so the city having to do cost estimates for some of the services they provide. So by no means was that Lindsay's fault that it's getting before us, kind of.
Yeah.
Last night. But
This is so nice. I mean, this whole.
construction party dollars a day. And then Ypsilanti's a little higher, but obviously that's a bigger community downstate. They charge $25 a week. So I think being at $10 a week for us isn't off base.
I don't think it's enough personally. It allows people to have stuff there a long time, but I also don't think that it's enforced and 2-hour parking is not enforced either. So I would be questioning whether or not this is actually being enforced, and I'd probably triple it or quadruple it. I mean, even $50 a week is nothing to take up a parking spot. We put a lot more value on parking spots than that. For what we,
Dumpsters sit there forever,
for what we pay the college per year for their parking lot. So we could just, that's my opinion. But I would also ask in the same question, if it's up to the police department to enforce this, are they willing to enforce 2-hour parking? That's just coming from me, but because we have a problem with that.
So do we really have that much oversight over the parking stuff and like charging that?
No, I
Yeah,
think it was Ed just saying,
Just heads up?
because it's downtown,
Okay.
putting it in front of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if we don't want any changes, I can tell at that. But if we also want to see, that jump up to $15, $20, it's also something we could ask
That's a
for.
good point there. It is pretty cheap and it's like, well, you don't have to pick up that
Who's-
dumpster for a couple
Who's
weeks.
collecting the money?
Yeah, the city.
Is it coming back to the DDA?
No, but it's not, to me, it's.
We'll talk about parking.
The point isn't, to me, who gets the money. To me, it's the value of the parking spot itself. And we put a lot of value on parking spots.
But I agree with what you're saying, but if it's not being enforced, and we're not collecting the money for it, I mean, who's?
If he's asking.
Here's what number we put on
Yeah,
here.
if he's asking for our opinion, that's my opinion. My opinion is it should be $50 or $40 a week. That's just my opinion, but we have no say.
But, as an opportunity to speak back to Ed, since he provided us this, I agree completely. One, it should be a lot higher, and 2, it should be enforced. So the sense from the DDA that, I would want to convey is more money and enforce.
Does anybody want to give an exact number as to what they might want to see that increase?
Don't care,
Okay, but if we're,
more, since it's not being enforced.
Yeah,
It's kind of a moot point, more and enforce it.
but I
Be
think,
specific and we'll respond to that.
Ed's gonna want specifics.
Yes.
50
A week,
and enforce it,
per space per week.
2 per day, but that's me.
Okay, but if we're talking about that, then we're being a little hypocritical if we're allowing these platforms out there in a parking spot and we're not charging that per week.
I think.
No, we're not being hypocritical because I personally think that it is worth a lot to the DDA to have that space occupied by people, right? So I'm just making the economic exchange in my head. I would rather have people sitting there and eating. That's a good thing.
Than a dumpster.
Right, than
No,
a dumpster.
It is a good thing, but then,
No, a truck.
then who becomes the police as to what's allowable for, that we're gonna charge and what's allowable that we're not gonna charge? Like who gets to make, so you say that's a,
We do. We make recommendations. Charge for construction vehicles, don't charge for people sitting there. Because I want people sitting there, I don't want construction vehicles there. So if they have to be there, charge money.
I want construction vehicles there, but I want it to be like, we could probably get this out of here this week because it's gonna cost us another $50 next week.
The other-
We could
the other
find
side
something
of-
off street.
But the other side of
Make a
this,
deal.
hold on, the other side of this is, we're passing this on to our fellow business owners, you know that. Because the construction is just gonna push that construction cost onto the person that's trying to remodel. So we're doing this to our own right now.
I'm fine with it. It's not that much money. It's more just like, hey, there's value to this parking spot.
Okay, but if let's just say, it's your building, but let's just say it's my building, Edward Jones.
Yep.
And I park a construction in front of my building, it's my parking spot.
It's not.
Well, it's in front of my, I understand that, but generally being in front of my business, right? I'm the one doing the remodeling. I'm the one that's going to have to cure that cost, pay for it. So now that I see both sides, that's what I'm getting at, is you guys make this $50 a day, it's coming back on the person that's doing the remodeling.
I'm saying
I would-
$50 a week.
Yeah.
It's $10.
And so,
Cent a day.
and so it's not an incentive if there were no cost to it. There's no incentive to move the project along quickly. To get the eyesore out of the way, to get the trucks out of the way quickly. Want it done fast.
And all I'm
there's a-
saying
and
is I
there's a
think,
dollar value. to
and I
it.
just think it looks bad for the DDA to say that a parking spot is only worth $10 a week.
Yeah.
That's all. That's my kind of, if they see that we value these spots, that's my.
Right.
But
It's, there's great arguments on both sides of this
Mhm.
fence. I'm just being on the other side, that's all.
I also think it helps a little bit when I sit down with the chief and say, hey, how are we gonna actually enforce 2-hour parking? Because we really value these spots, but we've got building owners and employees using these spots. How do we, there's no teeth. We value this. He's not gonna come back and say, oh, you only value this at $10, but still.
Well, I mean.
He wants feedback. I think you got enough stuff.
Okay.
It's their choice, but it's like enforcement is
Yeah.
important. Are they being enforced?
They're
And
not,
it
because
is
you're
a low
gonna, you're gonna have
cost.
to put on another police officer to enforce it. I mean, this is, yes, feedback is more, we value and for them.
If the property owner or construction company does get a permit to put a truck there or put a dumpster there, then it will be enforced because they have to have that permit. If they don't, that's on them, but at least if they're doing it properly, then.
And Ed said it's typically for dumpsters too, but if you're leaving a truck there, so that's also a case where it would be charged.
Fun meeting, I like it.
All right, moving on to old business, I think. Riverwalk, Bill's not here. I know a lot of the decking's been replaced. I know.
They've been cruising through it though.
Yeah.
They're hard at work.
Social district? Anything?
No,
Okay.
nothing for social district.
Richards and McDougal contract, that's just kind of a formality, right?
Yeah, so Bill requested if we do the 3-year, if they can keep the price the same, they did agree to keep the price the same at $425. Unless there's additional work that would cause that for whatever reason to be increased, but $425, 3 years for Richards and McDougal contract.
Listen, I was one asked to go out and look. No one came back. I 100% support this contract.
Yeah, I think it's a deal.
Do we have to do a motion to?
Yeah, I can have a
approve your-
motion on that.
So make a motion for Kyle to approve the contract for 2
Second.
years.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. We'll sign that. Budget update.
So budget update, the subcommittee for the budget met. We did get the invoice for that West Shore Plaza, Riverwalk Plaza, so that changes what next year's budget looks like. And that was $240,000. So a big expense that we've been budgeting for 3-4 years now. So getting that off the budget definitely helps balance it, get it closer to balance. And then.
I have a meeting today, another budget meeting with Chamber and Economic Development. And then I think we should be able to I think we could submit a draft anyway. My recommendation, what I talked about before this meeting, was that we submit a draft without the RAP grant.
Yeah.
And then if we get the RAP grant, just amend the budget and add that. Makes it simple rather than speculation.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. Yeah, and I misspoke at the last meeting, in talking with Ed further. The process was to get a draft budget to city council because they actually have the power to request amendments and changes. And then after they've approved it, our board will
Okay.
approve it because that will be, the most final version. So we'll have the last say in what the budget. So that'll be
Okay.
May or so. So it's gonna be, a draft will be given to Ed this Friday, March 14th. So it can go before council.
Banner update. You know anything about that?
Sammy's just working with the city still to get that sign delivery over to them, and it's multiple items, banners, wayfinding.
New business, spring flowers quotes. Nicole?
Yeah, so we did get a quote back from Wheezy's. The total on that would be $5,444.50. I did contact Orchard Market and our Field of Dreams, seeing if they would be able to accommodate an order this large. And unfortunately, they are unable to provide a quote this year. It's kind of starting to look, even with feedback from Wheezy's, that companies are needing about a year in advance notice. So both Orchard Market and our Field of Dreams are going to prepare quotes for 2026.
Thank you. How does this quote compare to last year? You remember?
It sounds larger,
Does it? Okay.
if I'm recalling, really.
Yeah, I would have to look, but I can get that number.
Do we need to approve anything for this?
I would ask for a motion to approve the quote to go with Wheezy's again this year.
What else does it entail? Paint
So-
baskets, planters.
Yep, hanging baskets, planters, fertilizer.
So they'll fill the. Whatever it's like.
The planter
Yeah,
boxes.
planter box.
Actually, I think the city fills.
Do they? Okay.
Make a motion to approve the Wheezy's quote for 2025.
Motion in a second. You have that, Nicole?
Yep.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Public comment? Nothing?
What I would, I know we've discussed, getting the apartments downtown with stores that are willing to put them up there, and we've talked about that at the council meetings. And is there any way, I'll ask Bill to submit a request, so we can know which apartments are available down here, or which they're willing to fix up, or if they want to get grants or something. We've asked for that before, I know, and we never got anything.
Are you talking about wondering what it would take to renovate spaces for
Oh,
apartments?
which ones are available, if there's anything, I know a lot of apartments are rentable already.
I started that list. I just need to finish that with square footages and which ones are currently occupied and what ones are complete rehabs.
That would help out, because a lot of, people have asked for it, and some of the people that were on were realtors at one time. They're the ones that really asked for it. And so now with new people on, you know, a lot of them don't know what's even downtown.
I think that would be, I love that list. And please include in that list the ones where people would want to do something, but there is a barrier. You know, and we need to, on the list, to know what the barrier is.
Thank you.
The other thing is, you know, the store is coming, what their building permit is coming due in April or something. I mean, I've been yelling for years about the store down there that they own. And they've got what, they had 75 days from the court or something to get rid of them red boxes in front or whatever they are. I mean, I've been yelling for 10 years about this. And it's been about 30 years they've had it. And now this store is coming up with a permit is running out. What can we do with this thing? I mean, this is without we keep going to court all the time.
I would say
This is
it's
a separate store, so it.
well, they're separate buildings, but it really has nothing to do with the DDA. You know, we don't have any enforcement.
Well, I've yelled at the city, you know,
Okay.
we should be doing something. I know at one time the Historical Society was given permission for another 2 years or something. And I yelled about that, but they just seem to let this go on.
I did see a ticket on
Yeah.
their door, so they've been ticketed obviously again, so.
Well,
But
it's
I
not
don't
till
know.
April 2nd, April
Oh,
something.
okay, yeah.
25, so, you know, I'm gonna ask Bill about what we're doing with this thing, so.
Maybe talk to the building official.
Yeah, I'm gonna be,
Yeah, so that, yeah, and that's a big discussion right now within the planning and zoning office at the city level, and there's a lot of back and forth if you attend the HDC meetings regarding those properties and just,
I
you
mean,
know,
this is going
what
on
they should
30
permit
years.
and
I
not.
mean, you know, we gotta do something.
Yeah.
I mean, they were given tickets before, and then George Saylor would go up to court, they'd get them all dismissed. So I don't wanna see this continue.
Agreed.
Okay, board member comments. Bruce?
I had asked, Andrew to make sure that we had money in the budget, to finally, update using the rising tide, design stuff, to update the, DDA website. Logo discussions, you know, were in that. Apparently, it's not a big deal. You know, so the color palettes will change. We'll have a logo, to bring, so that everybody can see it. But Sammy, it's gonna be consistent with the logo that, Sammy's been working on with, new signage, and wayfinding.
Thank you.
Next meeting after.
I know a couple of us are gonna say this, fantastic job. And we know Nicole put a lot of work into it, so Nicole, thank you. Andrew, appreciate this information on M-Class, since I had no clue what it was.
Yep, and that thanks goes to Nicole. She was the one who pulled all
Thank you
those
very
documents,
much.
so.
And as a financial advisor, that's a heck of an interest rate we're getting, so nice job on that.
Great.
So thank you.
Yeah, I'm second everything he says. Just follow his lead.
Careful.
Good job.
They did that so well. I'll follow their lead. No, really, thank you.
Right. Okay. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah. Aaron, thank you. Thank you all. Great week. Yep.